The discovery began, as these things often do, in the most mundane of ways. It was a rainy Sunday morning, the kind where the sky looks like wet concrete and the air feels like a sigh you can't quite finish. I was rummaging through the hall closet for a spare charger. My phone had died, and Claire, my wife of 11 years, was at a brunch with her college friends. The kids were off with my sister for the weekend. I had the house to myself for the first time in weeks. I pulled down an old shoebox, half expecting it to be full of tangled cables and orphaned earbuds. Instead, it was filled with photographs. Loose ones, some curled with age, others still glossy like they'd just come back from the drugstore. For a moment, I felt the pang of nostalgia. Claire had always been sentimental about print photos. She said they felt more real than anything on a screen. We used to take weekend trips with disposable cameras, the kind you wind by hand with that satisfying click. I settled on the couch, flipping through snapshots of birthdays, vacations, candid moments frozen in time. There were pictures of our wedding, Claire in her white satin gown, me in a rented tux that barely fit. Photos of the kids as babies, James with milk on his chin, Sophie wrapped like a burrito in a hospital blanket. I felt something warm and distant in my chest. A memory of a time when everything felt unbreakable. Then, halfway through the pile, I saw a photo I didn't recognize. Claire was in it. She looked younger, maybe by 5 or 6 years, wearing a navy sundress I didn't remember buying. She was smiling in that way people do when they don't know they're being photographed. Natural, joyful. Standing beside her was a man I didn't know. He was tall, lean, maybe mid-30s. Dark hair, sunglasses hooked on the collar of his shirt. His hand rested on her lower back in a way that felt too familiar, too intimate. I stared at it for longer than I should have. There was nothing obviously incriminating. No kiss, no bed, no hotel room. But something about the posture, the closeness, was wrong. I flipped through the stack. Another photo. Claire and the same man on a boat, both holding drinks, wind in their hair. Then one at what looked like a vineyard. Then more, her laughing, him holding her hand, the two of them on a beach towel, his hand on her knee. I counted 12 photos in total. All of them with him. All of them with her looking happier than I'd seen her in years. The last one sealed it. They were seated in a booth, red leather, dim lighting. A restaurant maybe. Her head was on his shoulder. His lips were pressed gently against her temple. She wasn't resisting. She looked content, comfortable, loved. I sat there for what must have been half an hour, letting the silence of the house press in around me. My ears buzzed. I felt my breath shorten. I stared out the rain-flecked window, hoping the downpour would somehow wash the images from my memory. Eventually, I gathered the photos and slid them back into the box, tucking it beneath the couch cushions. My heart pounded like I'd run a marathon. I couldn't move, couldn't think. Claire had always been meticulous, careful, cautious. She wasn't the type to make reckless mistakes, especially not ones she'd leave sitting in a closet like a ticking bomb. When she got home that evening, soaked and smiling, I tried to act normal. "How was brunch?" I asked, my voice barely audible. She shrugged off her coat. "Great. Long. You wouldn't believe how much gossip comes out after 2 mimosas." I nodded, forcing a smile. "Glad you had fun." I watched her walk down the hall, her wet curls bouncing lightly. She disappeared into the bedroom to change. I sat on the edge of the couch, clutching my knees, staring at the empty hallway like it might suddenly explain everything. The next morning, I waited until she left for work before I retrieved the box again. I studied the photos under the light of the kitchen lamp, as if a new angle might reveal something different. A street sign, a license plate, a date stamp, anything. Most had no labels. But on the back of one, faintly penciled, was a word. Carmel. Carmel. As in Carmel by the sea? The California coast? We'd never been there together. Ever. I did something then I'd never done in our entire marriage. I opened her laptop. It wasn't hard. Her password was the same as it had been for years. The name of our first dog, plus her birth year. Inside her photos folder, I found dozens more pictures. Most were of the kids, holidays, school events. But buried deep in a subfolder labeled simply miscellaneous were images I'd never seen before. Photos of her and the same man. Him holding her waist. Her leaning into him under a sunset. A picture of her sleeping on his chest, his hand wrapped protectively around her. Some were dated. They stretched back over 4 years. I clicked on a video thumbnail. the screen filled with shaky footage. Claire, laughing, as the man filmed her walking barefoot through a vineyard. "You're ridiculous," she giggled, swatting at the camera. "You love it," he said from behind the lens. "I do," she replied. "I really do." I closed the laptop. My hands were trembling. A heavy nausea swelled in my gut. When she returned that night, I didn't confront her. I couldn't. Instead, I watched her move around the house, setting the table, pouring juice for the kids, checking emails on her phone. She was so normal, so practiced, like she hadn't been living a double life, like she hadn't torn a hole through everything we built. That night, as she undressed for bed, she looked over at me. "You're quiet today," she said. "Just tired," I replied. She nodded, slipping beneath the covers. "Me too." She turned away from me and fell asleep within minutes. I stared at the ceiling, listening to the soft sound of her breathing, wondering if I was sleeping next to a stranger, wondering how long she'd been this other person, the one who shared herself with someone else. The next day, I took the photos to a friend, Daniel, who worked in private security. He owed me a favor. He glanced through them, expression unreadable. "You want me to find out who he is?" he asked. I nodded. "And how long it's been going on? I need to know everything." Daniel tapped the photos against the table. "You sure you want to know?" "I don't have a choice." He didn't ask anything else. "Give me a week." That night, I lay awake again, staring at the ceiling. Every smile she gave me now felt hollow. Every laugh rehearsed. The truth sat just out of reach, waiting like a hunter in the brush, watching. And then, 5 days later, Daniel called. I found him. I swallowed hard. "Who is he?" His answer wasn't what I expected. It wasn't just some coworker or old flame. "He's been in your life longer than you think," Daniel said. "What do you mean?" "I'll send you something. You'll want to sit down before you look." An email came through seconds later. I clicked the attachment, and what I saw made my blood run cold. It was a photo, one I hadn't seen before. Claire and the man, at my daughter's 5th birthday party, smiling, standing behind me, looking directly into the camera. I stared at the image for a long time. It was from Sophie's 5th birthday, the one we held in our backyard with the unicorn bounce house and the clown that made balloon animals that somehow terrified half the kids. I remembered that day clearly. The laughter, the smell of grilled hot dogs, the way Sophie had squealed when Claire brought out the cake with sparklers. What I hadn't remembered was the man in the background. But there he was, leaning casually near the drinks table, holding a red Solo cup, standing less than 5 feet behind me, grinning like someone who belonged, like someone who'd been invited. Claire stood beside him. They weren't touching, not overtly. But their posture, the angle of her body toward his, it was like a gravity that had pulled them closer than the lens could properly frame. Her smile was wide, open, too open. I zoomed in until the pixels blurred. His features were sharper here than in the old photos. Tan skin, square jaw, aviator sunglasses pushed up into his hair. I didn't recognize him, not fully, but something about him scratched at a memory buried under years of birthdays and summer cookouts. I dialed Daniel immediately. He answered on the first ring. "That's from Sophie's birthday," I said. My voice was hoarse, like it had traveled through sandpaper to reach him. "Yeah," he replied. "I pulled it from a guest's Facebook album. Public post. No privacy settings. You were tagged. So was Claire." I didn't speak. I ran facial recognition on him, Daniel continued. Took a while, but I got a match. I closed my eyes. My heart thudded like a fist pounding on a locked door. "His name is Nathan Mercer." "Nathan," I repeated slowly, as if tasting the name might help me recognize it. Daniel sighed. "Here's the thing. He wasn't just at the birthday party. He shows up in photos from your son's preschool graduation too, and a community fair you guys attended in the city last year. Same guy, always just out of focus, always near your wife." I gripped the edge of my desk. My fingers were numb. "He's not just some fling, is he?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "No," Daniel said quietly. "This has been going on a long time." "How long?" Daniel didn't hesitate. "The earliest record I found of Claire and Nathan together was 6 years ago. A hotel registry in Monterey. They checked in as Mr. and Mrs. Mercer." My stomach lurched. 6 years. That was just after James was born. We were deep in diapers and sleep deprivation, clawing our way through new parenthood. And she'd been, what? Slipping away on business trips that weren't really business? I ended the call and sat there, frozen, while the house hummed softly around me. The refrigerator clicked. A dog barked down the street. Somewhere, a lawnmower buzzed. But inside me, there was only static. The betrayal was vast. It wasn't just physical. It was logistical, methodical, planned. She had constructed an entire parallel life, brick by brick, lie by lie. And she had brought him here, into our home, our yard, our family memories. He had stood among us, smiling for pictures, sipping our wine. And I never saw it. I thought about the time she insisted on organizing the guest list. About how she always offered to greet people at the gate. About the way she'd slip out mid-party to help with drinks or take a call. The worst part wasn't the affair. It was how many versions of myself she must have watched me become. Husband, father, provider, while carrying this secret like a talisman. Some hidden indulgence she could revisit when the dishes piled too high or the sex felt too routine. Later that night, while she showered, I retrieved her old laptop from the closet. The one she said had stopped working last year. I had doubts now. Maybe it hadn't been broken. Maybe it was just a safe. The charger was still coiled around it. I plugged it in and waited. It booted up without issue. The desktop wallpaper was a picture of Sophie in a Halloween costume, dressed as a little ghost, barely 3 years old. The image made me pause. The innocence in it. The trust. There were 2 folders on the desktop, photos and work docs. I opened the photos first. Inside were hundreds, no, thousands, of images. Family events, beach trips, zoo days. Then, nestled in the middle, a folder titled Simply See. My hand hovered over the mouse. When I clicked it, the thumbnails filled the screen like a slap. Claire and Nathan, together in various cities, seasons, years. Their hair changed, clothes changed, but the intimacy didn't. I clicked on a video file. They were in a hotel room. She was laughing, sprawled across a bed in a robe. He was filming her, teasing her about the way she mispronounced quinoa. It was mundane, but that mundanity made it worse. Because this wasn't some fleeting lust. It was comfort, routine, a second life. I closed the laptop and sat in the dark. Claire came in a few minutes later, her hair damp, wrapped in a towel. She smiled when she saw me. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "Just tired." She walked over, leaned down, kissed my forehead. Her lips were warm, familiar. I wanted to scream. The next morning, I dropped the kids at school and returned home, heart pounding. She had left her purse in the kitchen. I opened it with shaking hands. No second phone. I tried the vents, the bathroom drawers, the lining of her gym bag. Nothing. Then, in the coat closet, I found it. Tucked inside a pocket of an old winter jacket, one she hadn't worn in months, was a sleek, black phone. No case. No lock. The moment it lit up, I knew I was holding the key to everything. Messages filled the screen. "Nathan, flight was delayed. Can't wait to see you. Counting the minutes. Claire, wear that blue shirt I like. I want to see your eyes against it." Photos followed. Recent. Her on a hotel bed. Him shirtless. Selfies. Inside jokes. References to places they'd gone, meals they'd shared. And then I saw a name I hadn't seen before. Becca, Claire's so-called coworker. The one she always said she was traveling with. I clicked on their thread. There were only a few messages, but the most recent chilled me. "Claire, if Tom ever finds out, it's over. I don't care what Nathan says. I'm not ready to blow up my family." Becca, then stop playing house with both of them. It's not fair. You're not the victim here. Claire, you don't understand. Nathan makes me feel alive. But Tom is safe. He's always been safe. Safe. That word sliced through me like a blade. I wasn't her partner. I was her insurance policy. I spent the rest of the day in a haze. The phone screen burned into my memory. By the time Claire came home that evening, I had already made a copy of every file on that device. She walked in, kissed me hello, poured herself a glass of wine. "Long day?" she asked, barefoot in the kitchen. I watched her for a long moment. "Yeah," I said, "but I think I figured something out today." "Oh," I smiled. "Yeah, I figured out what I'm going to do next." In the days that followed, I became 2 people. One was the version of myself Claire had always known, dependable, attentive, predictable. I took out the trash. I folded the laundry. I scheduled Sophie's dentist appointment. I played the role so well, even I almost forgot I was acting. But beneath that skin, behind the mask, something else stirred. A version of me I'd never met before. Focused, cold, precise, A man quietly preparing for war. I told no one. Not my friends, not my coworkers, not even Daniel. The truth was a blade, and I wasn't ready to unsheath it just yet. I needed it honed, sharpened to a single, devastating edge. The phone I'd found, Claire's secret portal to another life, was now cloned, and I checked the copy daily. New messages came in every night. She would text Nathan after I fell asleep, their tone shifting from playful to confessional, like lovers whispering behind the world's back. Claire. He looked at me strangely tonight. I think he knows. Nathan. Let him. What's he going to do? You're not his prisoner. Claire. He's not stupid. And he's been quiet lately. It scares me. Nathan. Then maybe it's time. We've waited long enough. Waited long enough. Those words sat with me like a ticking clock. They'd made plans. That was the realization that changed everything. This wasn't an affair she hoped to keep hidden forever. This was a slow, calculated exit. And I was the hurdle they had to clear. I began organizing everything. I gathered the photos from the shoebox, the digital images from her laptop, the texts from the cloned phone. I created a digital timeline, complete with location data, receipts, metadata. If I was going to confront her, it wouldn't be with shaky accusations. It would be with irrefutable fact. But I didn't stop there. The affair was a fire, but I wanted to burn the house down. I called an old acquaintance, Kendra, a family attorney I'd once worked with on a neighbor's custody battle. I didn't give her details, not yet. Just enough for her to understand the stakes. Claire's having an affair, I said. A long one. I need to know what my options are. Kendra didn't hesitate. If you've got evidence, and I mean solid evidence, you've got leverage. Especially if you want full custody of the kids. That last part hit me harder than I expected. The kids. James and Sophie had been my anchor through all of this. Their laughter still felt real. Their bedtime hugs, their messy drawings taped to the fridge, their early morning cereal catastrophes. They were untouched by this storm. Still innocent. But I knew that wouldn't last. I wasn't just ending a marriage. I was about to destroy their idea of what love looked like. That Sunday morning, Claire woke up earlier than usual. She was already dressed when I came downstairs, her hair still damp from the shower. I'm meeting Becca for brunch, she said, avoiding eye contact. We're going over some pitches for next quarter. I smiled. Sounds important. She blinked, surprised. Yeah, shouldn't take long. I nodded, kissed her cheek. Take your time. She smiled, hesitant, and walked out the door. I waited 5 minutes. Then I picked up my keys. I'd cloned the GPS from the burner phone, and it was moving, not toward the brunch spot she claimed, but west, along the highway, toward a small bed and breakfast we'd once stayed at years ago, back when our marriage still felt new. It was almost poetic. I drove slowly, carefully, parked a few lots away. I watched through binoculars as Claire's car pulled into the gravel driveway. And there he was, Nathan, emerging from a black sedan, casual, confident, like he belonged in every stolen moment. They embraced quickly, too quickly, like a habit. I didn't film them. I didn't need to. I'd already gathered enough. Back home, I sat in the quiet. The silence felt heavier now, as if the walls themselves were waiting for the impact. Later that night, after the kids were asleep and the dishes were put away, Claire sat at the table scrolling through her phone. I sat across from her, watching. Do you ever think about who we used to be? I asked suddenly. She looked up. What do you mean? I shrugged. Before the kids. Before the house. Back when we were still figuring things out. She smiled faintly. Yeah, I think about it sometimes. Do you miss it? She paused. I don't know. Life's different now. We're older. Wiser. Her eyes flicked to mine. Something like that. I let the silence sit. Then I stood. I want to show you something. She followed me into the study. I opened the laptop, queued up the folder I'd named The Answer, and stepped back. I didn't say a word. Claire stared at the screen as the photos flicked by. Her and Nathan in hotel rooms. On beaches. In our backyard. Her smile faded with each image. Then came the texts. The call logs. The receipts. The metadata. The proof. She covered her mouth. Her knees buckled slightly. How long? I asked quietly. How long were you going to lie to me? Tears welled in her eyes. Tom. How long, Claire? Her voice was a whisper. 6 years. It wasn't the number that broke me. It was the way she said it. Soft. Hollow. Like it was a confession she'd rehearsed for years. I nodded slowly. She reached for my arm. I never meant to hurt you. I stepped back. But you did. She sank into the chair, hands trembling. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. It just, Nathan made me feel alive, I said, finishing the thought for her. She flinched. Safe. I laughed, bitterly. No, that was me. I made you safe. She looked up, eyes pleading. I never stopped loving you. Don't, I said sharply. Don't give me that. She cried then, the quiet, collapsing kind. And I let her. I stood and watched as the woman I thought I knew dissolved in front of me. When her tears slowed, she looked up again. What now? I met her gaze. My voice was calm. Now? Now we see who survives the fallout. She blinked. I've already spoken to a lawyer, I continued. I have everything I need. Custody, the house, everything. But that's not the part you should be afraid of. Her lip trembled. What do you mean? I mean Nathan. She froze. What about him? I leaned forward. You've built your life on borrowed time. But now? Now I'm going to burn down his. Claire's face went pale. You don't know who he really is, do you? I said, voice low. She shook her head slowly. What are you talking about? I walked to the filing cabinet, pulled out a folder, and tossed it on the table. Daniel did more than just identify him, I said. He found things. Important things. She opened the folder with shaking hands, and her gasp echoed through the room. The gasp wasn't the satisfying crack of someone finally facing their sins. It was smaller, tighter, like the air had been sucked from her lungs, and she was still trying to pretend she wasn't drowning. Claire stared down at the folder, unmoving, her fingers trembling slightly as she lifted the top page. It was a background report. Nathan Mercer, age 42. Real name, Eric Nathaniel Carrington. His actual occupation wasn't listed as consultant, as Claire had always told me. It was contract liaison for a defense subcontractor that had been flagged for multiple ethics violations overseas. The company name triggered something in my memory. I'd seen it on the news, vague talk of misconduct in procurement deals and gray market supply chains. His listed addresses spanned 5 states in 10 years. No social media profiles, but dozens of digital breadcrumbs, burner phones, encrypted emails, unlisted P.O. boxes. The man she'd trusted, the man she'd cried over, wasn't just a liar. He was a ghost wrapped in paperwork and polished charm. Claire blinked hard, still not speaking. Her face was pale, lips parted slightly. And then I saw it. Not guilt. Not sadness. Fear. She looked up at me, voice barely audible. How did you find this? I folded my arms. You weren't the only one living a double life. But this, she motioned toward the folder, voice cracking. This can't be right. He told me he worked for an analytics firm, something with energy markets. I raised an eyebrow. And that sounded normal to you? Man disappears for weeks, uses a burner phone, never posts a single picture online. Sounds like a romantic. I didn't ask questions, she whispered. I nodded. Yeah, that's pretty clear now. She leaned back in the chair like the weight of the last 6 years had finally found her spine. The silence hung, thick and electric. I watched her closely, trying to decipher what emotion would win, denial, anger, or fear. So what? She finally muttered. You're going to expose him? Blackmail him? No, I said quietly. I'm going to ruin him. Her head shot up. I've already started, I continued. A friend of mine at a federal compliance firm ran a few of his flagged transactions past the DOJ. He'll be under audit by Friday. Every expense, every invoice. And that's just the beginning. Her mouth opened, then closed again. She looked stunned. Not because she thought I couldn't do it, but because she realized I would. And what about me? She asked softly. I haven't decided, I said truthfully. I walked to the window, looked out at the dark lawn beyond the glass. The swing set swayed gently in the breeze. I remembered the day we installed it. I dug the holes myself, poured the concrete. Claire had laughed when I refused to let the kids near it until it had cured for a full 72 hours. I used to think, I said without turning around, that we were building something permanent. That if you stacked enough memories, enough laughter, enough Christmas mornings and scraped knees, you could create something unbreakable. I turned back to face her. But all it takes is one truth to rot everything from the inside. She stared at the floor. I wanted to hate her. I wanted to scream. But I couldn't. Not yet. The rage had burned out and left something colder behind. Something heavier. You should go, I said. Tonight. Claire's head lifted slowly. What? I've made arrangements, I said. A suitcase. A hotel room. I even booked a rental car. I left nothing for you to figure out. Just walk out the door. Take it. And the kids? They're with my sister until Sunday. You won't see them until I say so. The custody paperwork will come next week. She didn't argue. That surprised me. She stood slowly, still holding the folder in her hand like it might crumble if she let go. At the door, she paused, turning halfway. I was going to end it, she said. With him. Before the summer. I looked at her, expressionless. He said he wanted me to move in with him, she continued. But I couldn't do it. I couldn't imagine life without the kids. Without you. Even now. I walked over, took the folder gently from her hands. Your imagination, I said, isn't my problem anymore. She left without another word. The house felt impossibly quiet. For the next few hours, I walked room to room, touching every wall, every doorframe, as if trying to make sure this was still my life, my home. In the living room, I sat on the edge of the couch and opened the envelope I hadn't dared to look at yet. The DNA results. James, 99. 998% probability of paternity. Sophie, 99. 999%. I exhaled, a long, slow breath I hadn't even realized I'd been holding. They were mine. No matter what Claire had done, no matter how she had twisted our marriage into a performance, those children were my blood, my legacy. That fact grounded me like gravity after a storm. But I wasn't finished. Nathan, or Eric, or whoever the hell he really was, had left digital fingerprints all over our lives. I'd already alerted the right people. But now, it was time for the next step. I opened a fresh email. Subject, urgent matter, potential threat actor in domestic sphere. To Office of Inspector General, Defense Contracting Division. I attached the full dossier Daniel had compiled. Every email, every photo. I wrote only one sentence in the body. You'll want to look closely at Nathan Mercer's international travel records between 2018 and 2021, particularly any involving Qatar and Belize. I hit send. A second later, a delivery confirmation chimed. I closed the laptop, got up, poured myself a drink. It was after midnight when I finally climbed into bed. Alone. For the first time in over a decade. I lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling, listening to the hum of the central air. The pillow beside mine was untouched, the sheets still smooth. I expected grief. Or rage. But what I felt instead was clarity. This wasn't over. Not yet. Because I knew something Claire didn't. I'd checked her old cloud backup weeks ago, buried behind passwords and hidden folders. Among the images she thought she'd deleted was a photo I couldn't forget. A picture of Nathan, smiling. Next to him, holding his hand, was a woman, tall, blonde, wearing a wedding ring. The date stamp was from 2 years ago. Claire wasn't just his affair. She was one of them. And suddenly, a whole new chapter cracked open in my mind. Because if he was cheating too, then it was time to find her. Her name was Elise. I found her by reversing the photo's metadata. The image Claire had saved, perhaps by accident, perhaps out of recklessness, contained GPS coordinates embedded in its digital spine. A cafe in Vancouver. I cross-referenced the timestamp with known data I had on Nathan's movements. Then I found her. Elise Carrington, 39, married to Eric Nathaniel Carrington. Yes, the same Eric who called himself Nathan Mercer in our lives. She worked as a landscape architect, kept a private Instagram filled with snapshots of tree canopies, garden paths, and the occasional latte foam design. And in the background of a few of her photos, barely visible, almost accidental, was him. Same smile, same sunglasses, same hand, resting gently on her waist like he'd never held another woman. My hands shook as I scrolled through her posts. One picture showed them together, posing in front of a glassy lake. The caption read, 12 years, one love, infinite gratitude. 12 years. So he'd been with her even longer than Claire. I stared at that photo for a long time. Not out of pity, not even anger, but calculation. It wasn't enough to burn his life from one side. I wanted to split it open from both ends. Let him watch as the world he'd juggled for years collapsed like dominoes in every direction. The next day, I called Elise. It took 3 tries. On the third, she answered. Hello? Her voice was calm, pleasant, with a Canadian lilt. Hi, I said. This might sound strange, but I think we need to talk. About your husband. A pause. I'm sorry, who is this? My name is Tom. I believe your husband. Eric has been seeing someone. My wife. There was another pause. Longer this time. I think you're mistaken, she said, her tone shifting. My husband travels a lot for work. But her name is Claire. I interrupted gently. They've been together for 6 years. I have photos, messages, hotel logs, even a fake identity he used. I'm not calling to hurt you. I'm calling because I thought you deserved to know. Silence. Then, quietly. Can you send me the proof? I did. Immediately. An hour later, she called back. Her voice trembled now, but it carried steel beneath it. I want to help you, she said. Tell me what you have planned. And so, the plan was born. We agreed to wait 1 week. Just enough time for Claire's separation papers to be filed, my custody petition submitted, and Elise's own attorney to begin the process of untangling assets that spanned 2 provinces and 3 offshore accounts. During that week, Claire tried to reach out several times. A voicemail here. A quiet text there. I'm sorry. I missed the kids. I made mistakes. But I still love you. Please talk to me. I didn't respond. I wasn't ready. Not yet. Saturday came. The kids were at my sister's again, unaware of the storm their parents had been living inside. Claire arrived in the early evening, as scheduled. She stepped into the house like a guest unsure of her welcome. Her clothes were wrinkled. Her eyes rimmed red. She looked smaller somehow, folded into herself. I just want to talk, she said. 5 minutes. That's all. I nodded. Fine. We sat across from each other at the dining table. She stared at her hands, fingers twisting the strap of her purse. I don't expect forgiveness, she said quietly. I just need you to know it wasn't fake. What we had, the life we built, I lost sight of it, but I never stopped loving you. And the kids, they're my world. I didn't interrupt. She looked up. I was scared. Of being ordinary. Of vanishing into routine. Nathan, he made me feel seen again. But it was a lie. I see that now. I leaned forward. You say he made you feel seen, I said. But did you ever see me? She blinked. For years, I woke up next to someone who was already gone. I continued. And I convinced myself it was marriage. That people drift and come back and drift again. But you didn't drift. You left. You just didn't pack your bags. Her eyes filled with tears. I'm not here to fight anymore, I said. What's done is done. But you're not walking away untouched. I handed her an envelope. Inside, a printed copy of the email I'd sent to the DOJ, Elise's statement to her attorney, and an official notice from a private investigator who had submitted Nathan's fraudulent ID records to Canadian authorities. Claire read in silence. Her lips parted, chest rising and falling like a tide crashing beneath her ribs. She swallowed. This will destroy him. I know. She looked at me. Why involve Elise? Because she deserved the truth. Just like I did. And because you weren't just his victim. You were his accomplice. That landed harder than anything I'd said. I didn't know, she whispered. You chose not to know. I stood. This is the last time we talk face to face for a while. Our lawyers will coordinate custody. You'll see the kids. But not here. And not unsupervised. Not yet. Tom, you shattered everything. That doesn't get swept away in a weekend. She stood too. Slowly. Nodded. And left. That night, Elise called. It's done, she said. He came home 2 hours ago. I had the photos printed on the kitchen table. The documents in a folder. He barely spoke. What did you say? She exhaled. Nothing. I just pointed to the front door. What now? I'll rebuild, she said. With or without answers. I understood that. The next few months passed like fog lifting. Slowly, then all at once. Claire accepted the custody terms without a fight. Maybe guilt, maybe exhaustion. I didn't ask. We moved into a new routine, swapping weekends, sharing holidays. The kids were too young to understand, and I wasn't cruel enough to shatter their innocence. Not yet. I found a rhythm again. Woke early. Made pancakes. Took James to soccer, Sophie to dance. Laughed again. And eventually, though I never expected it, I found peace. The memory of Claire's betrayal didn't vanish. But it dulled, blunted by time. Like a scar that no longer stung, just reminded. One night, as I was organizing some old files, I came across the shoebox again. The one that started it all. I pulled out the photos. The ones of Claire and Nathan. I stared at them for a moment. Then at the others. Our wedding, the kids' birthdays, lazy beach afternoons where I thought we were happy. I didn't burn them. Didn't shred them. I put them all back in the box and walked it to the attic. Some memories didn't need to be erased, just stored, out of sight, out of reach. A few weeks later, I stood in the backyard, pushing Sophie on the swing. The sun was setting, painting everything gold. James was chasing fireflies near the fence, barefoot and laughing. And I thought, this is real. Maybe that's all I needed now. Not revenge, not rage, just a life that couldn't be faked.